How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the first ride and review of this 2025 Honda CBR650R. This is a platform I've been interested in for several years. I actually owned a CB650R all the way back in 2019 that I did as a giveaway bike, so a bit of familiarity with this platform, but this is newly updated. New CBR 1000-esque fairings. We have this fancy new TFT display right here that the old one did not have. Look at that, looks really nice. And then, of course, the biggest talking point on this motorcycle, Honda's new e-clutch system. Today I'm going to show you guys how that works in practice, what this motorcycle is like to ride, who the target audience for this bike is, because honestly, this motorcycle has a slight identity crisis, right? It features a 649cc inline-4 engine, making about 94 horsepower. It's a little on the heavier side. With the e-clutch, I guess Honda's trying to make it part of the beginner bike family. I'm not sure. So today we're going to answer those questions and see what this motorcycle's like to ride. What's it like in the twisties, around town, on the highway, and overall, what is the experience of this machine, and should you ultimately get one? Now, if you did want to get this motorcycle for free, head over to yamanoob.co. This is our newest giveaway bike. We just wrapped up the MT-07 giveaway. This is April's giveaway bike. We're doing one every single month. So become a member today for your best chance to win. You'll stack up your entries. You'll get automatically entered for all of our future upcoming giveaway bikes we're doing this year. So if you become a member right now, you'll get access to the Discord server, discounts on the store, and entries to win all of the giveaway bikes for this year. We have no plans on slowing down. In May, we're launching another bike. We're doing some of the hottest bikes on the market today. We're doing CF Moto 675 SS, the new R9, the Panigale V2, a bunch of really cool bikes this year. I'm really excited to get started on this riding season and give these bikes away, man. I'm super pumped. I love what I do. So head over to yamanoob.co, support the show, and let's get started with today's review. So Honda kind of failed upwards, and I mean that in the nicest way possible for all the Honda fans out there, into the not-so-super sport category. We're now looking at motorcycles in today's marketplace that cost less than $10,000, make less than 100 horsepower, are a little bit more comfortable to ride, and ultimately just provide a little bit of everything for the rider. So you might look at this machine and say, dang, that looks like a razor-sharp sport bike. It's actually not. It's a little bit more comfortable. It's a little bit heavier. And the overall ethos of this bike is designed more of on-road than on-track. And really, it's meeting the moment, right? When you have stuff like the GSX-8R, the R7, the RS660, this motorcycle slots perfectly in the category of those bikes, and does so with an inline-4 engine. So this is one of the few bikes in the category, albeit the ZX4RR, that has an inline-4, so it's fizzy, it's fun, it's special, and really provides a unique riding experience over the parallel twins that are kind of dominating the marketplace nowadays. If you really prioritize and value the inline-4 soundtrack, then this is certainly your bike. Let's swing a leg and let's get on the road, shall we? All right, swinging a leg over the CBR650R. Kickstand up. Really nice cockpit, I gotta say. I like the Showa separate function big piston fork over here. That means rebound and compression handled independently in the fork leg. A really nice new TFT. This, to me, is exactly how all TFT should look. Tachometer right here, rev counter, tachometer, gear indicator, speedometer. Perfect. So let's fire her up. One of the strangest things you're already going to notice about this e-clutch, we can start this motorcycle, and I'll show you guys here. We'll pull in the clutch traditional, right? Just as we normally would. We're in first gear, right? Now check this out. This is going to be pretty crazy. I can let this out, and it's a traditional clutch, right? You're like, oh, okay, what's the... this looks like a pretty normal motorcycle. Yeah, I don't know why you're making a big deal about it. Let me put it in neutral and show you guys something. All right, we're in neutral now. You guys see that a little green light popped up over here, and now the clutch lever is completely slack, which is really weird. And what you can do now, as much as it pains me to do this, I can just put it into first gear without touching that clutch. So check this out. I put it into first, and then there it is. It's in first gear. It's just there. I don't have to touch the clutch. And watch, we can actually just twist the throttle gently, and away we go. Never have to touch the clutch. So in my detailed studio video that's coming out later this week, I'll explain how the e-clutch works and why it's so interesting and unique. But the quick TLDR on this system is that a small pair of motors is actuating the clutch on your behalf. And what that allows you to do is have the motors work the clutch for you. And so the bike is literally engaging and disengaging the clutch on your behalf. Think of it as a sort of invisible hand or butler that is pulling the clutch in for you if you're unsure of what to do with the clutch as a newer rider. Now, it is kind of strange, I will say, that this technology rolled out on this machine in particular, because I don't really think this is much of a beginner bike, to be perfectly honest. I think this motorcycle is much more of an intermediate bike. The price point, the power figure, the engine configuration, basically everything about it to me suggests much more of a intermediate level bike. And the interesting thing is Honda will not sell this motorcycle in North America without the e-clutch added onto it. So you have to get the e-clutch with this machine if you want to get it. But the best part about the e-clutch is that it can be completely bypassed. There's still a physical connection right here to the lever, and so if I want, I can shift this motorcycle completely traditionally. Let's go around this gentleman here, click up through the gears a little bit, and we see that I was using it clutchlessly, right? I can actually downshift as well, completely clutchlessly. Not touching the clutch. You guys see the gear position indicator, down into third, and that's pretty cool. Now, a caveat to that, although you can bypass the system, you can do all your other stuff, this is a cable actuated throttle. So this doesn't actually do an auto blip. What it does is it just kind of lets the clutch take in the load and just slips it a little bit, from what I can tell. Because you'll see here, we're going to get on this straight here. If I go on the brakes and then I go down into third, down into second, it's not a satisfying downshift, I will say. It feels a little herky-jerky, but the upshifts feel great. The upshifts feel just like a quick shifter, and in fact, it feels kind of better than a quick shifter because the clutch is actually being engaged and disengaged. On a quick shifter system, the ignition timing is cut on the machine, allowing the gear to slip, and so you have to kind of be on the throttle a little bit wider open to get the quick shifter to work really well on a traditional quick shift system. Because this actually uses the clutch, you don't really get that effect, really. You can actually be off the throttle completely and then shift up, and it feels really good. I can shift down through the gearbox without touching the throttle, and then no throttle application at all. I shift up, it feels really good, really clean, unlike a quick shifter that you can't really get it to feel clean if you're not on the gas. Most quick shifter systems feel a little bit herky-jerky if you actually try to blip up through the gears, not on the gas itself. So the e-clutch system is super cool. It definitely deserves its own video. There's a lot to talk about, and what I'm going to do with this bike is probably do like some edge case testing. I really want to see what it does in ultra speed situations, kind of weird situations. Like, there's so much to test with the e-clutch that I think it deserves its own video as a brand new piece of technology. So keep that in mind as we ride this motorcycle. It's using the e-clutch. I can also pull in the clutch and you know, deactivate it at any time. We'll see here, if I want to grab up a gear with the clutch, I can. If I want to go rev match myself, it'll totally let me do it. And we can hear this inline four sing a little bit, because that is the unique thing in this motorcycle, is this inline four soundtrack. Wide open, grab the gear there, and it lets me do it because that e-clutch. Really, really cool. So let's talk a little bit more about the ethos of this bike. What exactly is this thing going for? Because I think this motorcycle's a teensy bit confused. It has a pretty serious demeanor about it, right? CBR 1000 inspired looks, an inline four engine. But I gotta say, this 650 might be the most docile inline four I've ever ridden. It is extremely easygoing. It makes really, really buttery, simple, smooth power in the middle. This thing is not going to punch like an MT-07, like a GSX-8R, even like a Daytona 660. This is just like a buttery smooth, beautiful, simple riding experience. This is nothing like the new age parallel twins, and that makes sense because this is kind of an older platform. Honda has made derivations of this CBR650 engine since about the 90s, man. The architecture of this motor dates back to the 1990s in the Honda Hurricanes, the CBR600 Hurricanes, before they went homologated and you know, did the CBR600RR and then bifurcated the two platforms. This is kind of an old school bike in a way. And because it's a little bit more old school, you do pay a slight penalty, in my opinion. This bike is heavy. It's about 466 pounds. That's 63 pounds heavier than the MT-07 we just had in the shop and we're testing, and I was really impressed with its on-road manners. This bike, it's heavy, it's slow to steer, it's a little bit more vague. This has way less sport bike chops than I was expecting. I was really expecting something a little bit more like an RS660 or a GSX-8R. Ooh, that was interesting. I was using the clutch and then it just like E-clutch took over for me. Well, why don't we try this right now? Let's see what it does. Okay, so we've pulled in the clutch, we're rolling in first gear. I'm feathering the clutch a little bit. I've let it out. The E-clutch thing is back on. We can slow down completely and it doesn't stop. I just felt the clutch pull in there and it just slipped it a little bit again. That's really interesting. So anyways, the E-clutch system works really, really well, slow speeds, and it's a nice addition to the bike. But what I was saying is this motorcycle, it has to kind of fit the bill for a lot of different riders, because this is Honda's middleweight, fully faired bike, and it's a bit of an older platform, and it's just not quite as nice and smooth as some of the brand new bikes that are coming out. So again, kind of vague steering, kind of slow to steer, a little bit heavier, a little bit more of a kind of like easygoing street bike sport touring style thing. You know, it's really not quite as agile and as sporty as you would expect. It's really not, you know? And these tires that are equipped on this bike, these are the Dunlop Road Smart 2s or something like that. I don't have any familiarity with this set of rubber, and I gotta say I'm not very confidence inspired by these tires. I really think that they should have come with something a little bit more V-shaped, a little bit more grippy, because I'm not getting good sensations out of the tire, honestly. I don't really find myself wanting to lean this bike over very much, and in fact, it actually resists leaning quite a bit. I think that's probably down to the fact that it's an inline-4, it's got a long crankshaft, a heavier crankshaft, and so it tends to just resist that turning a little bit more. And the fact that it's just, I don't know, like the way it's set up, maybe it's to do with the trail, maybe it's the longer wheelbase on this machine. You know, I just don't feel like I can really get after it with this bike. You know, every time I dip into a corner, I feel a little bit of trepidation. I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's really going to grip. I don't know what it's going to do. And so, I don't know, this isn't really a machine that I would buy if I wanted to do a lot of twisty road riding, like in this type of scenario that I'm in today. I don't think this is this bike's strong suit. I actually think this bike's strong suit is much more in suburban traffic, is much more as a commuter, much more as a kind of do anything motorcycle rather than a twisty road carving bike. I would rate this motorcycle pretty mid in its capabilities as a twisty road bike. I personally wouldn't really consider this bike a strong contender, you know, in the kind of like twisty road department. Let's talk a little bit about the brakes on this machine. We have radial mounted Nissan calipers pinching a 310 mil rotor on both sides, floating style discs, which is a pretty cool touch that Honda added to this machine. I really think it feels pretty damn good. The feel from the lever is really nice despite being an axially mounted brake caliper, master cylinder up front here. We'll go here on the brakes a teensy bit. I got good progressive feel. If I want to squeeze a little bit harder, I can. Yeah, it does the thing, you know, it does the braking job. It's pretty good. Adjustable lever as well, and I like that. I'm so surprised by how little kind of like top end power and rush this thing has, and it just feels really kind of meek in the mid-range too. Of the middleweight sport bikes I've tested, the Daytona 660, the GSX-8R, the R7, the RS660, I've ridden all of those machines. This one certainly feels the slowest, I will say, even compared to the R7, because I think the R7 just punches so nice, and it has a really nice low curb weight as well. This machine, I just find it, you know, with its much heavier curb weight and this very mildly tuned inline-4, it just doesn't feel all that fast. To be honest, it feels about as fast as the ZX4RR, because that bike is so much lighter weight and makes, I think, 75 horsepower when you get the flash. This feels about as fast as that bike, but it feels way heavier and way less willing to have some fun. So I don't know, to me this bike is a little, I don't know, like a little confused, like I said. Okay, let's try something here. We're gonna be up in 5th gear. I'm gonna go up to the stop sign. Let's see what E-clutch does. Let's see what it does, because it doesn't shift for you. Oh, look at that, it's telling me to shift down. It's like, you're not gonna be able to take off going in that type of gear. But see, it goes into neutral, and then it feels like a totally normal neutral bike. We then can put it down into 1st and just roll away. Now, I wanted to show you guys really quick, though, that you are able to turn this off. If you go over here to the settings, let's drop down here, the gears, function, E-clutch, totally off. And so now I'm not using the E-clutch at all. We're not doing that at all. We don't have any E-clutch capabilities. This will now work like a traditional motorcycle. So you'll see I'll take away, and it actually has a little M that appeared down there as well too. So this machine now is just completely analog, completely bypassed, and that's the best use of a technology, honestly, to me. I really like the fact that this thing is you know, just like in 3M mode. It's not going to be doing any E-clutch strangeness. So it really fits both bills, right? You can be a beginner rider and really not worry about the clutch at all when you ride this thing, but you will have to shift, right? It'll function more like a bicycle in that way. Or you can be an experienced rider and just turn the E-clutch off and use it as normal. You do notice the E-clutch on the side here to the right. You guys can see here on the 360, my foot and leg are kind of contacting this kind of protrusion right here, and that protrusion is the E-clutch system, because it actually sits on top of the clutch on the side of the engine over here. Man, it's got nobody's home on this bike until like 10,000 RPM, and then it ends at 12,000. So I don't know, to me, you're kind of missing the real top-end rush of an inline-4, because to me, a Japanese inline-4 needs to rev to at least 14.5 or 15, kind of like a CBR600 or an R6. Well, I mean, kind of for me, I'm like, well, what's the point of having an inline-4 if it's not going to really rev, you know? Because here in the middle, this bike is just really gutless. All right, we'll show you guys some of the power characteristics here as I grab my own downshifts. It feels a whole lot better. Here's 2nd gear rolling onto it, and right at about 11 you feel some real power. So basically all in the mid-range, it's not very fast. This is the laziest 94 horsepower I've ever felt. And again, it may be the fact that it's, you know, a bit fatter, a bit more vague. The power band is obviously going to come in a little bit later on this motorcycle, right? But, you know, I never thought I'd say this, but I kind of want the immediate power band of the new kind of parallel twins. Like, an RS660 is much more rewarding to ride than this CBR650R, while being basically just as comfortable, because it has that kind of pep in its step, and it just feels a little bit sharper and more immediate. I'm genuinely surprised at just how laid back and chilled out this Honda is, despite its flashy looks and its inline-4 soundtrack. I didn't really expect that, to be honest. I really thought this motorcycle would be a little bit more hair on fire, but it's a very relaxed bike. And again, in a way that harkens back to an older time when inline-4s were a little bit more laid back, when manufacturers were cross-platforming these more race-derived inline-4s to be a little bit more mid-range tuned and easygoing. But man, it's crazy. I mean, this thing's down 30 horsepower on a CBR600RR with 50 more cubes of displacement. I thought for sure it'd have like really broad usable torque, but it doesn't feel any more torquey than a regular 600. It just feels like a 600 that has nothing up top. And again, in a way that's actually really similar to the ZX4, because the ZX4 feels the exact same. You're kind of like, oh, like it's a 600 with nothing up top. And perhaps that is good for beginner riders, because you don't want crazy screaming top-end power for someone who's not really ready for that, or not really equipped to handle that. And I don't know, like, yes, this bike is expensive. Yes, it's got an inline-4. I don't know, I'd really categorize in the kind of beginner plus category. It doesn't really feel that crazy to ride. I don't know, but you guys got to keep in mind, I'm a pretty experienced motorcyclist. I've owned stuff like a Turbo Hayabusa, so it's a little bit different, you know. Oh, it's nice to grab your own shifts, though. I'm old school, guys. What can I say? Let's open her up a little bit, huh? Whoa, inline 4 power, baby! Go here. Wide open in third. It's not supremely fast, I will say. Like, it feels nice. It's a nice amount of power. I think what this does, in a way, if you think about that beginner plus category, you know, with the R7 and the GSX-8R and those bikes, I always tell riders, you got to be careful because it makes really accessible low-down power. So, you know, mind your throttle, mind a little bit of your on-throttle snap, because it's going to bite you a little bit. But I think that this motorcycle, it's the opposite, where it has basically no snap down low. Like, it's not going to do anything down low. But what it does have is a little bit more of that top-end rush, where, you know, you got to be able to manage the feelings of a little bit more power up at the top. I will say it's a nice place to sit. I like the view out of this cockpit. The dash looks great. This is one of the most legible TFTs I've seen in recent memory. Looks really good. I like the slight customizability of what you can see down here. Very intuitive, very easy to understand. Nothing too crazy on this bike, right? Like, I think a lot of motorcycles, like the Street Triple, tries to like reinvent the wheel with the TFT, and it's like, guys, it's like, keep it two-dimensional, keep it flat like this, give me the parameters that are most important: gear position, speed, tachometer. That's all you need. We don't need to keep reinventing the TFT display. It's really not necessary. Let's go ahead and turn e-clutch back on, right? Why not? We are here in the urban jungle. Oh, this is still so strange to do this. It just, oh my god, that feels so wrong. I wanted to say this system actually is functionally the same as MV Agusta's smart clutch system. Now that utilizes a traditional, oh, that's so crazy to pull away without the, oh my god. It still utilizes the quick shifter and auto blip, but what it has is a recluse clutch that does basically the same thing as this one. You can put it down into first without touching the clutch lever and just take off with it. But Honda's system is totally different. You know, it's like a little device that actually is actuating the clutch, which is crazy. So here in more suburban style traffic is really where I think the CBR650R shines. I think this motorcycle makes so much more sense for those of you who just want a nice bike to ride back and forth from work or school. You want a motorcycle that can do some highway duties. You're not super interested in, like, you know, performance or front end feel or carving up twisties. If like you don't really care about that stuff, this is a cool bike because it makes the right sound. It looks really cool. You know, this is one of the few bikes that I showed my wife and she was like, oh, that's a cool looking bike, you know, because it really does look the part of a true blue sport bike. But it doesn't really have any of the downsides because I'm comfortable. The seat is very agreeable with a 31.9-inch seat height. The reach to the bars is nice and amenable. I'm about 5'11", and you know, you guys will see in the studio video, I mean, ergonomically, I'm comfortable here, man. I got a slight bend in my back, but it's nothing too crazy. I don't feel like I'm, you know, really cramped for space on this bike. It doesn't feel too small or too big. It's a very flexible package for a lot of riders. Let's go ahead and grab these gears down using e-clutch. You can hear it opening and closing the clutch. God, that's weird. And then you come to a stop and it's like you're just magically in neutral somehow. Man, that's so crazy. And I'll tell you guys this right now, without a doubt, Honda's gonna roll out this technology in every other bike in their lineup. I can't imagine they won't. An adventure bike with an e-clutch is basically a perfect setup because you get all the benefits and none of the drawbacks, slow speed maneuvers, super interesting technology. Again, we're gonna do a whole dedicated video to the e-clutch because there's so much to talk about. So price is $98.99. That's a teensy bit spicy in my opinion, but to be honest, with the build quality of this motorcycle and the fit and finish and the feel of it, I think it's worth it, you know? Sitting on this motorcycle, I definitely feel like I'm on a roughly $10,000 bike. It doesn't feel like the R7 where you're kind of like scratching your head, sort of making excuses for how simplistic it is. Particularly the R7 that has the old school LCD dash and just like the really basic look out of the cockpit. You know, you sit on that bike, you're like, damn, I paid over $10,000 for this. That doesn't really feel like an appropriate commensurate amount of money. It feels like it should be a $7,000 motorcycle. But prices have gone up in the last couple of years. Y'all know that for sure. But there's definitely a look back factor to the CBR650. You really feel like it's a handsome bike. You really feel like you could, you know, enjoy this motorcycle every day and just have a bike that you're really proud of, you know? Oh, look at this, slow speeds in traffic. Oh my God, it's like literally, that's so crazy. You can feel it slipping the clutch on its own. It literally feels like an invisible hand just slipping the clutch slightly. Oh my God, that's so weird. It's so weird. It's taking me everything I have to not pull in the clutch. I'm like really having to be like, this thing will do it. Don't worry. I got it. Now, something to think about with the e-clutch is brand new technology, right? It is Honda built, so I'm sure they did an insane amount of quality testing and all that stuff to make sure it's going to run right, but it could still break, right? It's two little motors, it's got a lot going on, lots of sensors. It does add complexity to the machine, and it does cause more potential failure points. That's something you got to think about if you're going to get this machine, right? Where you are introducing something that could break. But in my mind, if it does break, because you can bypass it by pulling in the clutch, and I believe it's a mechanical connection that allows you to bypass it, in theory, if the motors stop working or whatever happens with the sensors, it should allow you to use this motorcycle like a normal motorcycle, which is pretty cool. I think you could just pull in the clutch and it will always work like a normal bike, if I understand it correctly, because the e-clutch is sort of like an added-on thing to it. So in theory, it should still work. This motorcycle's comfortable, man. You know, that added weight and heft really lends itself very well to just being kind of a highway cruiser, a mile munching kind of bike. You know, these inline 4 Hondas are really nice at just kind of cruising on the highway. It's a lot more comfortable than you'd ever imagine it to be. And to be honest, it's more flexible than a lot of the bikes I mentioned previously. I think the only one that does about as good of a job is the GSX-8R. I was really impressed with that bike's ability to be a sort of sport touring bike, kind of touring light capable, you know? It's a motorcycle that genuinely works very, very well on the highway. As we get up here to some higher speeds, clicking it up into 6th gear with the e-clutch system, 70 miles per hour on the highway, cruising behind some random car. And we're doing well, you know? I got a comfortable seating position. My back is pretty upright. I feel good, man. I could do lots of miles on this bike. This windshield's doing a pretty good job. You know, if you're gonna get this bike to commute with, I think it's a solid option. And again, the e-clutch is a fantastic feature to help you commute with it too. All right, boys, let's get a quick acceleration test in on this bike. It sounds good up at the top end, huh? I like it. I think that sounds pretty sweet. I wonder if I can launch with the e-clutch. Let me go ahead and pull off to the side here. See if we can just wait a little bit and get an opening. Oh, I gotta shift down, that's right. It's not a DCT, not a DCT. All right, let's see what it does when I just try to frickin' send it in first gear on e-clutch. Okay, let's go. Oh, that was awesome! It did this perfectly buttery smooth launch. That was so sick. Okay, alright. Stoplight warriors, this might be your bike. You want perfect clean launches every time when you leave away a red light? This is it, baby. Oh, that was so cool. I did not expect it to be so... I think it limited... There's no way it limited the power. I think that was all clutch slip. Because I was asking for a lot of gas and I could hear that it was... The throttle was open and it was like, and it just slipped the crap out of the clutch and just went away. That was awesome. It did really good. Oh, I want to try that again. Oh, yes, I got the red. All right, boys. Let's see how this does on the... Let's see how this does on the launch. This is so cool. Okay. I have a Tesla next to me. Do you think we can beat it? It's so weird to just like... I'm just going to twist and go like a scooter. I'm literally just going to give it maximum throttle from idle and just see what it does. This is crazy. All right, let's... This is so cool. Let's see what it does. I'm literally just going to... I'm just going to pin it wide open as soon as it turns green. I think this Tesla wants to go. I think I can beat him. I don't know how fast this thing is. Okay, I think after this white truck, we'll be good. In first gear is pretty good. It stuttered a little bit. It was kind of confused, I think. It was like, huh, what? We're going wide open? That's a lot of fun, though. That is a lot of fun to just pin it off idle. Just not even worry about the clutch. All right, Honda, maybe you got something here for drag racers. Maybe this is a technology that is going to get involved with drag racing. Up 40, that's it. I don't think it's much faster than that. And the top end rush isn't nearly as explosive as you think it is for an inline 4. That's just fun, though, man. Those downshifts don't feel particularly good, though. It feels, because the clutch is taking all the load. Oh, look at me using the clutch because I forgot. But the upshifts are beautiful. Alrighty, boys, we pull into a stop here in first gear because we can do that on this bike. But if we put a kickstand down, ooh, cuts off like it's supposed to. All right, Honda CBR 650R, man. Really interesting bike. Really interesting bike. This E-clutch definitely dominates the riding experience because in a traditional motorcycle, you know, you're using this clutch all the time, right? Like you're always feathering the clutch and slipping it off of stoplights and stuff. So that added tech on this really makes it quite different to other motorcycles in the category. It is way less sporty than you would imagine. I think this motorcycle is like, you know, a super chilled out commuter type of bike, man. It feels way more spiritually similar to a Ninja 500 or a CBR 500R than any super sport machine. On the spectrum of, let's say, 10 is a super sport, let's say a CBR650R, and a 0 is a Goldwing, right? We're talking ultimate touring, ultimate sport. This thing, to be honest, is more like it's like a 5 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 in terms of its sporting capabilities. I wouldn't really want to take this bike on a bunch of twisty roads. I wouldn't really want to get super serious with this machine. To me, this is a motorcycle that is best reserved as a commuting bike, a fun, sporty bike that you can take to school, take to work, do some errands with. You know, it's comfortable, it's easy to ride, it'll run forever. With the addition of the E-clutch, you can basically use it as a twist and go, maybe even removing the need for, you know, if you got like a scooter or something to bop around on, this thing could certainly serve super scooter duties because you don't even need to use the clutch. You just got to remember to shift up and down like a bicycle, which is pretty easy because it'll remind you if you need to shift, because of course it does because it's a Honda. So what's my overall rating? Well, for me personally, I like my motorcycles with a little bit more of a hard edge and to really know what they're about. To me, this bike is very similar to the GSX 8R, spiritually, stylistically. You know, it's very sport bike looking, but it doesn't really have sport bike chops. It kind of gives up the ghost in terms of what it can really do. I don't feel super comfortable loading up the front end on this machine. It didn't give me very good feelings on the side of the tire. It's very slow to turn in. It's very heavy compared to other bikes in this category. So for me personally, that's where I would put this machine. I'd rate it a nice sort of 7.8 out of 10. I think it does really, really well for the very specific kind of buyer. You know, if you're the type of guy or gal, like I said, wants something chilled out, but has all of the pinnings of a sport bike, this is a great option. And of course, if you want to win this bike for free, head over to yamanube.co, become a member, join up, and you can get entered to win this machine. If you are that kind of rider, you're looking to step up from your Ninja 400 or your entry-level bike, you want something a little bit more intermediate that has a lot of cool tech and features, but is still comfortable, still easy to ride, is not going to be an intimidating sport bike that demands to be ridden all the time in anger and on track. This thing's really cool, man. It's laid back, it's simple, it's chill, and I think it does a lot for the market. So guys, that's my opinion on this motorcycle. Remember, check out the website, support the show. We love what we do here. We're the largest independent motorcycle media channel on YouTube. We're not beholden to any sponsors, no corporate interests. We basically do whatever we want to do. So these bikes, I buy them, I give them away, and it's a small group over here. So support the show at yamanube.co. I truly do appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later.
Keep watching Yummy News.